Here. Hey James, how's it going, man? So
I,
here we are. We're
I'm
doing it.
good.
We're setting ourselves up, and I'm telling you, we're copying them the banners. We've got them set up, but that I wish I'd known that we were going to go with a facial hair because I'm feeling a little bit demasculated here compared to that.
I'm not surprised, mate. I'm surprised.
You look like Rocky Four.
Hey, yeah.
Oh gosh, how are you doing, man? Are you all right?
I am great. So, like, just to give anybody that's watching this, me and Andrew, particularly whenever I started taking over his prep last year, I would be getting my steps in, he'd be getting his steps in, we'd be setting up calls, and we'd be talking to each other and just shooting the SH1T, and we just talked about everything from background. There was funny things, just random stuff, and then we generally finished off with the serious topics of competition prep, etc. So we kind of this is where the idea of this podcast came from. Literally just two guys that generally chat on a weekly basis. Anyway, we might as well just record it and see if there's any nuggets for anybody to take away. So here we are.
That's it. So here we are. We are the two bro Natty Pro podcast, I guess. That was the working title. I see no reason why we shouldn't just go with that. We'll formally introduce ourselves. So I'm Dr. Andrew Chappell, aka the Natty Coach. I'll hand it over to yourself, my podcast host.
I am James Melville, WNBF PCA Pro.
So he is two Natty Pros. I am WNBF Pro and DFAC Pro. So I guess we've got doubling up in that respect. Now, the concept, as you see, the whole point of the podcast was we had these great conversations. We should share them with people at the same time. And the reason I thought we'd also set up this podcast is because I think we've got a lot to offer. I've appeared on so many podcasts down the years, and I've always said, you know what, I should just do this myself because I know so many people that I could get on to have great discussions about things. And I know you, James, as well would do the same. But there's a lot of podcasts out there. So, I mean, why listen to us is, I suppose, the big thing really here is, and you know what, we're two very experienced pro natural bodybuilder. So although there are other people in this space, I don't think there's anyone doing it at as high a level as us. There's guys that have got pro cards, but just to be frank, I don't think they're very good. There's also the knowledge base as well at the same time. And at the same time, it's hard for me always to relate to guys that might be putting out information where they've maybe not got that educational background, but also at the same time, they've not got that pedigree in terms of the competition background at the same time. And also, to be frank, I just don't think they're that interesting, right? So there's a gap in the market, and I'm thinking, you know what? We need to be filling this. And the mission statement I came up with this again, the working plan on this is just to try and provide you guys with high quality educational content backed by our experience, science, and from guys that have been in the trenches for years doing this sort of stuff. But guys have actually lived. Because I don't know about you, I was speaking to a business coach the other day there, and they described another business coach as adorable, which I thought was hilarious, quite demeaning. But they were talking about a 25-year-old influencer giving out business advice. It's like, well, what did he actually know about the real world, right? And when you've lived a little bit and your skin's a little bit more leathery, not that I'm saying you look leathery, James, you
Yeah.
look fab. Maybe I look a bit leathery. Then it really counts for a lot when it comes to being in the trenches and actually living the life of a pro or being a high level competitor. So there we go. I've talked a lot. I'm going to hand it over to you, James, and let you come in here a little bit while I sip out of my heart of midlothian cup.
Oh yes. Yeah. So just a wee bit of my background. I have my journey started. I'll not touch too deep on it. Yeah, it's cool.
It's good, right?
This is no rehearsal. It's the performance of a lifetime. That's my daily little mug. So yeah, but I trained from like 13 years of age. Well, just I'm really keeping this concise, so I'll speed through it. Trained on and off from the age of 13 till 20. Ended up with severe brain trauma at the age of 20. Suffered paralysis on the left hand side as a result of a stroke, brain injury, and went through rehab. And after a lot of muscle wastage, was told and advised to start lifting weights, and that's whenever the love for the iron began. From there, for multiple years, I wasn't allowed to work because I was prone to seizures at the time. So nobody would have me. So instead, I just went back into education, got myself up to scratch, started working as a coach in around 2002. And here I am now. So all those years later, so over 23 years of experience in this field. I'm now the owner of the Compound Room in Lisburn, and I also run Team Compound Prep Coaching, which we're working more or less exclusively with natural athletes. I do have a few assisted athletes I work with on a training perspective, and that's pretty much it. I've been a WNBF Pro from 2022. In fact, Dr. Andrew Chappell was the head judge at that show who awarded me.
I don't know what I was thinking.
And the same year, a couple of weeks later, I turned PCA Pro in the untested federation, winning a British title. And within 2 years, then I won the first pro show, which was the WNBF Valhalla Pro in 2024. So I was the lightweight champion.
And you looked sick at that particular show. And you beat a much fancied Dirk. What's Dirk's second name? Dirk Emmerich, that's it, Dirk Emmerich. And you know what? You beat him well. I hands down, just based on the photographs. And I think you're selling yourself short, because I think you're one of the best lightweight natural bodybuilders, in fact, just natural bodybuilders in the world, to be frank. So for a fantastic competitor. James, I'm really interested about the coaching since 2002, right? Because this is a really interesting background that you've got, because you got the brain injury, but when you said you were coaching, you were working in a clinical setting. So you can tell us just very briefly about that.
Yeah, I've worked in the job roles that I had. I ended up working in sort of like rehab consultation for quite a few years. That's kind of where I really developed my knowledge on muscular anatomy. A lot more on, even back then, it wasn't, the terminology of biomechanics wasn't really thrown about, but I really was able to cut my teeth during that phase and develop quite a good understanding of those. And part of that was even sort of neural connection, having like literally no connection to my left hand side. I started using things like pre-activators before that terminology got through about. I've worked alongside in like hospitals in terms of rehabilitations as well, in those settings with people from like sort of cardiac rehabilitation, and just general rehab as well. So people with different sort of injuries. I had a lot of referrals during that period. So that was took up probably about 7 years of my life. I was also working in the council, who at the time were just happy to pump money into my education. So pretty much anything I decided that I wanted to do, from strength and conditioning to nutrition, they like funded it, which was really good. And I was there then for 10 years before opening the Compound Room. And we've been open for 10 years at the Compound Room from 2016, recently celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
And you know what? It's an amazing facility. I love it. Every time I've been over there, I've really, really enjoyed it. And you've got such a great community feel going on in there as well at the same time. And that's testament to what you and Adele have done with that particular place. So props to you for the 10 years. And we should definitely come back and talk about the gym on other episodes. I'm curious as well, right? So I think in this space, when we're talking about coaching and when we're talking about experience, etc. from here, you actually have worked in a professional setting. And I think that's important, and as part of multidisciplinary teams, because you're around other professionals, and that absolutely shapes your approach, I believe, in terms of when it comes to your coaching ethos and your philosophies that you follow. And it's one of the reasons why you use the language that you use as well, which really, I think, helps you in terms of your credibility, because you've got excellent biomechanical knowledge, that's for sure. And it definitely shapes the way in which you coach and how you get people to execute exercises from here. What I'm curious about is, given that background that you had from the brain injury, and then obviously having to use the left hand, not being able to use that left hand side of your body, maybe I've made that particular part up. How did that shape you as a bodybuilder? Because people often talk about adversity. Did it make you think that, right, I'm lucky to be doing this because of what I've gone through. Every moment's treasured. I mean, I don't know. You tell me, how has it shaped you? Because I know you've thought about this because you're a deep thinker. So tell me.
For me, it was I. Part of that rehab was long. It was grueling. It was frustrating. Byproduct of brain injury as well is aggression. So like I was definitely going through that phase, and so that like eventually lifting weights was more to do with just sort of at that point maybe anger control, just allowing me to funnel some of the positive and negative energy into that pursuit. Whenever you start seeing progressions in terms of muscle development, particularly on the weaker side, starting to feel a wee bit more sensory feedback, then you start to realize that there's more to this game, and you do feel a lot more, I suppose, motivated, knowing that you're literally starting from the very, very bottom. So I left hospital. I think I weighed in at 78 pounds. I'm not the tallest guy. I was like 5'6.5", but I was literally
78 pounds.
I was like that. And it just looked really malnutrition. This side was just complete, everything had wasted.
Yeah, that's like what, 35 kilos, 40 kilos.
Yeah. So like there was nothing there. So the rebuild was big. Within about 2 years, I was back to, well, I was stronger than ever actually. It took me through that period of time, and I just trained at home with a set of cast weights and an abdominal board, and just sort of built up strength, channeled everything into it. Actually, within about 3 or 4 years, I had a pretty decent physique. And probably at that point, even in 2005, I possibly could have competed. Not saying I would have done well, but looking at the standard of a lot of first-timers on stage, I was probably not far off that at that point. But it was like another 9 years before I actually did get on stage.
And I guess the next question is, I mean, like, why get on stage then? What was it about bodybuilding that you thought, right, okay, I need to do this now? Like, where does that come from? That love of bodybuilding?
I just honestly, I was been following bodybuilding. I had magazines upstairs in the attic from like 2002.
Yeah.
Just started being really influenced by that, and then started working on the scene in it with a supplement company. So the likes of NABBA, Northern Ireland, and different federations. I was down working the trade stand, so I was in and around the shows all the time. Started going like traveling the world, watching bodybuilding. So it wasn't natural bodybuilding.
So who's the hero? But who's the one? Who's the guy?
The guy that motivated most. Well, initially it was probably nothing to do with bodybuilding. It was like The Rock.
Oh yeah, Dwayne The Rock. What a guy, right?
So, but then
have you smelled what The Rock? Can you do the people's eyebrow? I can.
Sorry. Yeah,
those promos he used to do were like, they were immense, right?
Yeah,
I remember them all.
Yeah. If you had a wrestler name, what would it be?
Oh God, if I had the wrestling, I did wrestling. Did you know this? Did you know this?
No, you didn't.
Oh, I did. So I was bouncing off. James, I wrestled for something called Scottish School of Wrestling, SSW, around about 2005, 2006, bouncing off of ropes, slamming people. Like, I remember I went along with my friend Chris, right? And my friend Jason. And like, Chris was like a crazy wrestling fanatic, right? Crazy. And we put on our first comp show, and it was at like this scout hall for this company. And he was like bleeding himself and everything. I was like, I am not doing that. I am not doing that. I called myself the natural, right? That's what I called myself. Doing all that. It was so much fun.
If you've any photos,
like slamming yourself. Oh my God.
If you've any photos, get it into this pod.
Oh, I don't have any. And it's not because I'm embarrassed to show them, because I have a brass neck all the time, because I would definitely show them, but I'll need to have a look, right? But yeah, I was a wrestler. I was a wrestler. My big heroes, I mean, I like Jericho. I thought he was really, really good. And Rob Van Dam, he was great. Hulk Hogan's the hero for me. Like, he was the original goal.
Well, actually, the guy that made me want to lift weights at 13 years of age was Lex Luger.
Oh, Lex Luger, the narcissist.
Wow.
The Lex Express, man. Yeah. He was the one that slammed Yokozuna.
Yes, he did. 500 pounds, Yokozuna.
You had to have a wee elbow pad on to do it.
Yeah. So I remember asking my cousin, who was about 4 or 5 years older, how do you get like that? He said, weights.
Yeah.
You need to lift weights. So I had asked my mum and dad for Christmas. I wanted a set of weights and an abdominal board, and it was literally, so it was like 25 quid for the abdominal board, 25 quid for the weights, and that was me. That's all I needed. And
Yeah.
I still have, so that's what, 32 years ago. I still have the chart upstairs, the Weider chart that had
Yeah.
drawings of the exercises that
Amazing.
so every day I came back from school, I would do all the exercises, and that was 5 days per week. And by the age of 13, I was only one of my year where like six pack. I was obviously the smallest of my year, but I was like a wee tank, which was
amazing. You should put that in a frame. Definitely put it up somewhere in the house.
Yeah.
That's so good. So it's a rock, and that was the inspiration. I mean,
That,
my story is kind of similar, right? I mean, because the guys that were big heroes in the 80s and the 90s are the action stars, right? So Arnold Schwarzenegger's obviously there, but you're looking at WWF wrestlers all the time, and you're just thinking, well, that's what a man looks like.
yeah.
That's what you need to be. And they
Yeah.
already remarked about Rocky 4 when you first came on here. But Ivan Drago was a beast as well. You're like an Apollo Creed. I mean, then you watch a movie like Predator, and you just got these stacked guys dropped in the jungle against an alien.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of testosterone in the 80s and 90s.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Don't
100%.
make movies like that now, unfortunately, but
No, it's sadly. Well, I stopped following the Fast and Furious franchise after about 3 or 4. So there's 10, right?
yeah, something like that.
Maybe they are still making them.
Yeah.
So we scheduled this particular podcast. We were going to do a bit of an introduction for James, then myself, and then we were going to talk about some things that we thought were relevant for you guys to take away with you on here, some educational content. But I should talk about myself just very briefly, James, on this. So I'm Dr. Andrew Chappell. I am a doctor of nutrition. I got into bodybuilding, like I've just said there, loving bodybuilding from a young age because I was into sport, inspired by these big guys who are absolute heroes around me. And I, because of my love of sport, my first love being soccer association football, as I drink out of my cup here, you can see, I realized that my love for training would make me better at playing football, and I want to be more muscular as well. So I used to come home and I would have the York barbell set, those little cement weights, and I wanted to sort of try and lift them in exactly the same way that you did. And I would do, say, 50 push-ups, 3 sets of that per night, 5 days a week, plus sit-ups, and then I'd do like some bench press on my bed and then some shoulder press, and then I could do like standing against a wall push-ups as well. And then by the time I was 16, I was pretty jacked and realised, you know what, actually, Andrew, you're better at training than you are at football. And like, because I'm really specky, like I've got glasses. And you can say that when you're specky, right? I realised I couldn't catch the ball as the footballer, right? As a goalie. So I transitioned away. And then someone just said to me one day, "Is like, you should do a natural bodybuilding show." And I was like, natural bodybuilding? What even is this? And that was 2005. So when you were thinking about doing a show, someone said to me about doing it, and then the local guys in the gym said to me, just go and do a show. Right, okay, we'll help you do it. And then I the rest is kind of history after that. So I've been fortunate enough from reading all these magazines from back in the day, and I used to peruse through them and read the Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedias and see all these guys on the beach, and they would all have like a beautiful woman on their shoulder, or they'd be holding them up, they'd be flexing, they'd be looking powerful, they'd have a sports car, and that Californication of everything when you're growing up in like a provincial town in Scotland. And I know you can relate to that being from Lisbon. You're thinking, wow, that's glamour, that's Hollywood, I want a piece of that. And that's the route that I went in whole hog. And then I sort of went all in on it. I thought, right, how do I shape my life around this to try and get that? Not realizing that there was no real money in it.
Yeah.
at the time. So I sort of realized that, okay, I'm going to have to try and have some sort of career in this. And it coincided with my love of exercise. And I think I'm well suited to being a philosopher because I can talk a lot of nonsense. And I went down the route of exercise science and then eventually nutrition from there, because I sort of realized that this would aid me on my journey to be more muscular, but also to vainly try and attract some women at the same time.
Was it?
Unfortunately, though, I realized that more men were interested in my muscles than the ladies. So
Yeah. It's the vibe you give off, mate. You know. Yeah.
It's the long hair, I think, right? I think it's the
You're
long
also
hair.
quite camp, you know.
I think this is a bit rather fetching. I've came straight from work and I like this nice maroon blazer that I've got on. I thought I'd leave it on for the podcast because it's a bit different from your conventional podcasts. The guys are wearing their sponsored t-shirts and so on. And I knew you'd appreciate it. And
I
you
really
probably
like it.
enjoy the lining as well.
So let me ask you a few
Go for it.
questions then. So you started competing in 2005, six.
2006.
So I think when did you first think, so we'll just fast track a little bit, when did you first think about turning pro, or was that something you thought about before you turned pro?
Do you know what? It's something that I thought about because I was looking at these magazines and you're seeing the life that those guys are living, thinking, oh wow, I'd love to travel around the world and do that and do the pro life. So you're thinking like that looks like an amazing thing, right? But when you start out, and I think coming from a sport background where I played like under 15s, 16s, 17s, 19s, 20, you realize that it's a very long process, and you realize like if you're going to be a professional athlete, not everyone makes it. So I was also realistic about it as well. But I did my first year, 2006, and I won the Scottish Championship, and then I went to the British finals, and I came second at that. So obviously I had a pedigree for it, and I got a lot of great feedback from people. But I still knew that this was a really tricky and difficult thing to do. But it was the next year I did 7 shows, I think it was, and I think I won 4 or 5 of them. Got to the British finals, won that, and then I went to the Worlds, and I came second at the Worlds as a junior. And I suppose at that point I realised, you know what, you've got an aptitude for this, Andrew. So maybe it's not unrealistic for you to think about that as an actual goal. And I was suppose though it was maybe around about, I think it was 2010 that I realised that this could be a really realistic goal for me to turn pro. Because I competed against a guy called Mark Claxton, who I defeated as a junior, right? I competed against him in 2007 and he was a pro. And I beat him as a junior. He turned pro. And I also competed against another guy called Lawrence King. And he turned pro in 2011, right? And I beat both those guys. So when I went from being a junior in 2009 to being an open competitor in 2012, I was like, well, I beat these other guys that are beneath me as a junior. Surely I'm probably the next the next cab off the taxi rank. It'll be my turn potentially next, and I could potentially do this. So yeah, it was probably around about that time. But I mean, there's a big difference from being a good junior to being a mister, because the level goes up from there. And I won the British Championship, but I got beaten the overall, and that was probably the best thing for me because I wasn't ready for it as well. But it was probably, like I say, once I realised that I'd won some titles and stuff, I had an aptitude. And then once I'd seen my peers do it, I thought I could potentially do it as well. But there's that self-belief thing, I suppose. I don't know if I'm answering your question, am I?
So when did you actually turn pro?
2014.
Yeah.
So 2014 I turned pro. And another guy I beat as a junior, or I came up against as a junior, Rob Waterhouse, mutual acquaintance. He turned pro. He beat me in 2013. Oh, do you know what? Actually, I've competed against some amazing guys. So 2012 was when I came off the junior scene and went and became a mister for the first time. Got to the British finals, and it was Nathan Williams, aka the Prodigy. He won his pro card that year. Just came out of nowhere and beat everyone, right? So if you're going to lose to someone, I mean, why not lose to him, right?
Yeah.
because he was amazing. He really, really was. And then the next year I came up against Rob Waterhouse. Again, another really great natural bodybuilder at the time. And then he beat me in 2013. Again, very good natural bodybuilder. So I was in good company on that particular occasion there. And then I also lost to a guy called Sutonya Dukubu as well. Another great natural bodybuilder for a world title in 2012 or 2013 it was as well. So I kept getting beat by guys who were prestigious in this scene. And that's good because you want to go up against the best guys. And I've never shirked a challenge. I think that's the worst thing you can do is to try and go into weak shows to try and get these cards because you end up not being ready for it when it eventually comes round to it. So eventually I took the title in 2014. I don't like this term undeniable because, well, I don't particularly like it. But yeah, it was my turn, I suppose, and I was ready for it then, and I was by far and away the best competitor. So 2014, and that worked out around about 20 shows all in. I think I'd probably done before I won it, which I think is similar to yourself. So a lot of experience, a lot of experience.
Awesome. What do I do now?
What
What do I do now?
what do I do now? Well, do you know what? When you turn pro, I was fortunate at the time that the next show after that was the World Championships. So I ended up in what was like a middleweight class, and I competed against a guy called Sean Wolf. I went over to Miami and competed in the 2014 DFAC Worlds, and I came second. So that was great as well to do that. First ever pro show, came second, and I mean, I thought I was maybe going to pip him, but he was just a wee bit better than me. Very, very good competitor from there. And then it was a case of, right, okay, if I'm going to be successful at this, then I need to take some time away. And it was a bit like that story that Dorian Yates says. If you've anyone that's ever followed him, it's a case of like, okay, you've put all your work and your drive into this to turn pro. Now you've got to see if you're any good at it. So you take some time away and you come back and you better be making that top five or whatever at the pro show. Because after that, if you're not making the top five, then there's too much time, money, investment, everything to go into this to be competing. So I put absolutely everything into my next pro show, which was 2017. 3 years later, took some time off, finished my PhD, and just got bigger, stronger, better. And then on my pro debut, I was up against, British pro debut, Dave Kay, a guy who's probably the best natural bodybuilder of our generation, really. I wish he'd gone on and compete against more guys, but that's a different story. And then there was second place was Shane Raymond, who had defeated several times, a very good pro. I think I should have beat him, but that was it. And then I got third in that one, and I avenged a Rob Waterhouse defeat, who had beat me previously, beat him into fourth place on that one. In fact, you were probably at that show in 2017.
Was.
Yeah, well, so you would have seen it at the time.
That was the first year we met.
It would have been, yeah. And I remember there was a lot of noise about you. I was like, there's this guy called James Melville on the scene. You need to check him out. And I did. I was like, this guy's good. He's serious as a competitor, and you're shredded as well. And that commands respect.
Yeah.
So it does. Because I'd seen a lot of great lightweights as well. I was like, he's a contender.
I wasn't good enough from the back. From the front, I was pretty competitive, I think, in 2017. But
100%.
I needed more work from the back. But I remember that show, you guys walking out, because at that point I had only got exposure to the BNBF for the first time. That was I never even knew about natural bodybuilding before 2016. Sure. And BNBF came to Northern Ireland, and that was my first natural show. Yeah. And then 2017 went back, and I remember just sitting in the audience watching you, Rob Waterhouse, Dave Kay.
Yeah.
What was his name that placed second?
Shane Raymond.
Yeah.
What a competitive.
just so
Roundness.
massive, big arms,
Mm.
just loads of density across the board.
When people talk about great natural bodybuilders, and like I've been so fortunate. I've competed against some of the best guys in the last 15 years. Like a guy like Sutonyi Dugubu, amazing. Amazing about it. Shane Raymond, amazing. Some of these guys, if they rocked up at the WNBF Worlds, would be serious contenders. It's just a shame that the social media coverage back then is not what it is just now. And people often talk about they think the standards are better than ever, but see at the highest level, some of these guys they would hang.
Yeah,
Absolutely hang for sure. So yeah, that was a tough one. I went to the Worlds. I remember that year, and I competed against. I was in the heavyweight class, and I competed against Siobhan Cunningham,
yeah,
David Kay, and myself for the top three, and I beat Shane Raymond at the World, so I avenged that one. And again, Siobhan Cunningham, bless him, probably again between 2012 through to about 2020, probably one of the most consistent natural bodybuilders on the planet. That guy won so many natural bodybuilding shows. Great bodybuilder, really good. Probably one of the best there was at that particular time as well. Really, really strong. So that was the moment I was like, right, okay, I can probably do this. I can probably be all right at this in 2017. And I mean, gosh, since then, I think I'm up to 11 pro shows.
yeah,
11 pro shows. So I've done a lot. This year, the goal is to try and do at least maybe three
yeah.
more. I feel if I could do 15, that could be a number to retire on, right?
You'll
Because
not retire, mate.
well, do you know what? I was thinking about this. I was like, I don't know anyone from the UK who's maybe done. I was thinking that maybe Dave K, who's done as many pro shows as me, and we were talking about this in terms of like, I don't know if I like to use the words legacy. A lot of guys turn pro and then that's it, they're done. No shows, they
Yeah,
don't. They're just not good enough to be frank. They realize that they find that out. So in a very small subset of individuals who have done as many pro shows, and I'll be in the 1% of guys who have done as many pro shows in the UK from the UK as well. So I've got a lot of experience in that respect, and we're going to do it all again this year's, which is a nice segue, James. Right? So
unreal.
what's coming up for you this year? What are you thinking?
Um, I've had to try to fit my shows for the most part in around client shows because
Yeah.
the team compound prep coaching, I think we've 26 or 27 active competitors this season alone. And it's trying to sort
How
of
many? Sorry.
26, 27 in around there. So
Good man.
it's
Good man.
we have a phenomenal team. The problem with that is it's a good problem to have. There's some shows that we might have 8, 9, 10 competitors at the same show. And that's on the same date then as some of the pro shows that I would have to travel.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not feasible.
yeah.
So I'm looking at like trying to get a pro show in and around September. I'll also
So there's the Spanish Championships. I've been looking at that.
I'm potentially looking at that. I think it's only one that doesn't really conflict with any of the athletes' sort of show dates. And then if I can move forward into,
I think I've got it written on here.
oh yeah,
I've got it written down along with other nonsense.
yes. So
12th of September.
that's what I'm potentially looking at, trying to look at it logistically. And then the other scheduled show will be the PCA British. So that's untested in the Pro Classic Bodybuilding. And that's
27th of September, is that right?
no, that's October. It'll be October.
Oh, October, okay. I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So that'll be the British finals. And then obviously I want to finish the year in Calgary, which obviously yourself and I think we'll have a good wee squad actually going over for that one, which would be, I think, pretty cool.
So we're talking Spain, potentially WNBF championships. We've got the PCA British as the classic class.
WNBF Munich, hopefully.
We've got WNBF Germany. That's in, I think that's the 1st of November.
That's right.
So we're getting ready for that one. And then you've got the PCA British. And then we've also got the WNBF Worlds, which is in Calgary on there. I mean, quick question. What's a good number of shows to do in a year? What do you reckon for any competitor? First timer or experience? Does it change? What was a good number, do you think?
Yeah.
I just had someone that told me they did 6 shows in 8 weeks. I'm like, don't know if that's a good idea.
For me, it really depends on the level of condition and that in alignment with the experience of the athlete. Like if you got a first timer and they are legitimately under like sub 5% body fat, trying to keep them there whenever they've never went through that sensation for a prolonged period of time, thinking maybe be problematic.
Yeah.
We know that there's hormonal decline whenever we're in those sort
100%.
of proximities. So how do they cope with those components from a psychological perspective? I think can be very difficult. If somebody is a little bit longer in the tooth, like both of us, if we're
definitely along the truth.
yeah, if we're a wee bit leaner, if we're in those sort of lean phases, we kind of are familiar with the pros and cons of being in that sort of physiological position.
Yeah.
So our coping mechanisms, we at least have strategies in place.
Mm-hmm.
We're surrounded by people that are, guide us right if we do need that sort of set.
Yeah, keep each other accountable, right?
Yeah. So I think it does depend on those are the two main factors. For me, I did 6 shows back in 2022. 2024, I did 4 shows and a guest pose. And this year, it'll probably end up in around 5 shows potentially, I think. So I think if you're in shape, get a few shows under your belt. If you've got the finance, then travel. Particularly as a pro, we don't really have a lot of options, Andrew, as you know. We'll have to look at, right, logistically, where can we go? Then on top of that, as coaches, we also have to look at where are we busiest? And then what shows can I pick that don't conflict with my profession as being a coach to those individuals as well?
Yeah, I agree with really everything you've said there. I mean, it's certainly much harder for a first timer to manage themselves, undoubtedly, for the reasons that you highlight. I mean, hormonally, psychologically, coping, lifestyle, everything like that. But if you're in shape and you can manage it, and you've got shows which are maybe a couple of weeks apart, financially, it's not too stressful to travel, etc., then definitely get them under your belt. And if you're more experienced, you maybe don't need to jump into as many shows, and you can be much more selective. But there's certainly value associated with just the experience once you've been doing this for a while, right? Because if you can be with a group of friends doing this, your peers going around the world, I mean, that is absolutely golden. It's sometimes better than the actual show experience itself. I mean, if we think about young Connor over in Germany, and he said how much he enjoyed just being over there with you guys doing that, and when we're on a balcony drinking whiskey and smoking cigars, that experience will stay with him for a lifetime. So traveling internationally is something which is of value as well. I'm looking at that Spain show for sure as well. I've been looking at it, but if I just talk about my plans on here for a second, I'm thinking that Spanish show, which is in September, as well for myself, potentially looking at that one. We've got the WNBF Switzerland show. That is on the day before the German show. And I've looked at that. I think it's doable, right, to do them both. So I'm thinking about hiring a fast car and driving between Switzerland and Germany back to back, day to day. Just, I mean, part of it for me is like, I like the nutritional challenge associated with that. That sort of throws up like, okay, how do you manage water? How do you manage food? What do you eat? How am I going to get the recovery? And I'm definitely the sort of guy who likes to manage every single variable. And I like the challenge and thinking about how do we piece that together? Because I think I can be good at both of those particular shows, and they're back to back. So, and again, it sounds like an adventure. Try and do them both. I mean, it's a bit of a crazy story when you think about it. So I'm thinking the Spanish show potentially, the Swiss show, the German show, which will take me up to 3. There's the Worlds, which is 4, and then there's also the PCA Naturals, which is in September as well, which I'm thinking about as well, which would give me 5 shows, right? And I'm thinking the finance associated with it as well, because I have to work for a living as well. But James, get this, I've just been speaking to my friend Tim, who's one of the chairman, he's a co-chairman of NABBA, right? And he's been saying to me, Andy, if you come down June this next couple of weeks, you could do the NABBA Midlands show in the classic class, and we can give you an invite for the Worlds in June or July. It might be June.
Mm.
And I was like, "Do you know what? I'm not 100% in shape, no doubt about it, right? Right now, I mean, I've been sending you checking photos. I'm about 82, 83-ish kilograms. But if I'm cruising in just for an absolute warm-up show in the same way that you do like a guest spot, I might just do it because it could be quite good fun. And my expectations are low, but I do like quite fancy the prestige of doing the NABBA Worlds because it's in Newcastle of all places, and that'll be quite good fun from there. So that could be another one to contend with on here. And there's strategy about how you approach that as well. Yeah. What
Yeah.
do you think of that?
Mate, it doesn't surprise me, but you sort of mentioned that in passing like a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Look, you look like the look that you have. We're sort of in that sort of phase where you're coming out, everything's sort of looking tidy, but obviously you're not to the extreme condition to
Yeah.
go to with the standard you have. But I still think the way that you present your physique, your awareness on stage, you'll know where you're harder. You're obviously harder from the front profile.
Mm.
Side profile looks pretty good. It's going to be a bit of softness in the back and through the likes of the glutes and the hams. But you present yourself, you'll hide what needs to be hidden. I still think you probably look good. And your gifts, like Phil Heath, I think are very, very strong. So even you at, what would we say, 80% you're at?
At the moment, probably, yeah, maybe 85% or
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, if I'm competing at 100% and we just put some numbers on it, and my body weight on stage at the Worlds was like maybe about 78 kilograms. Right now, I'm about 82, 83-ish kilograms. By the time if I manage to get to the Worlds, I might be about 81. So you're still probably 3 kilos off
mm,
where you need to be.
yeah,
But it's like the shape from the years of training that I have, plus my skeleton and the muscle insertions, presentation could probably still make me competitive enough in that field to hold my own at the very least.
yeah,
I'll be doing it for the fun of it, really. That's the thing, and it warmed me up for the stuff later on in the season because you forget how hard it is on stage.
yeah,
Nothing will make you up your game for your posing practice and your in-gym stuff than being on stage and it's right, we need to get down to business. And that's why I quite like a warm-up show and why I quite enjoy the idea of guest spots and doing this. And I do love a guest spot. Um, Moving on from this one, James, because we've got to talk some educational stuff now, right?
yeah.
We've done a long introduction, and guys, thanks for staying with me, staying with us here. I'll timestamp this for sure. James, we're going to talk about some interesting topics, I believe. You wanted to talk about progressive overload and principles on here. I'm going to talk about proteins. I'm a doctor of nutrition, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. So I'm going to let you take it away here. I'm going to come in with some questions if we want to close out this section and move on. So tell us about this, James, and your principles and
Yeah,
progressive overload.
we just wanted to sort of have, we'll call it like the little science-based topics somewhere in the middle,
Yeah,
so we can still shoot the SH1T from the on these podcasts, but we'll pick a topic where I will cover, which will probably be more from the practical elements in the gym environment, and Andrew, using his high level of expertise, will obviously be discussing the nutritional science, and just try to make these as applicable to the audience. So anybody that's watching, most people that are going to watch this are either people that are wanting Andrew to send them dirty trunks, or or
I'm still waiting for this PayPal money to come my way.
I'm sending it later. Or, uh, or or it's going to be bodybuilders or people just wanting to kill a bit of time on their CV, which I completely understand. Yeah, so
Oh
my
God,
top,
imagine us in your ears for the CV. Go
yeah.
on.
So my topic was progressive overload.
Yeah.
But this is probably one of the most discussed topics in the pursuit of muscular hypertrophy. Okay, so I've actually seen a few topics coming up this week. People sort of arguing around this sort of basis, and it's kind of like
Okay.
the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
What is progressive overload, and people look at it going, it's muscular size allowing you to move more weight, pushing more weight to encourage more growth.
Yeah.
I think we are going to put in a couple of little diagrams and stuff into this. I'm assuming Andrew's going to do that because he's more technical than me. But I'll do a couple of slides and we can sort of input them, and it's just sort of like basic sort of visuals, so you can sort of see what that looks like. So whenever we're thinking about progressive overload, I think about this cyclical concept where we have progressive overload and then we have building muscle. And I call that sort of the adaptation cycle. So progressive overload, so we're increasing one of, in my opinion, potentially 6 components, one of or more. As a result of that progressive overload, we increase muscular size. That's through damage, elevation of protein synthetic response, muscle protein synthesis, and then we end up coming back around to be able to progressively overload because as a byproduct of building more muscle tissue. So we have to look at progressive overload having kind of 2 factors. We look at the short-term adaptation. So like, what is that? So before there's evidence of muscle growth, what is essentially progressive overload, and how does that adaptation occur? Well, that's going to be like a neuromuscular adaptation. So we look at how the central nervous system actually adapts to locking in certain profiles. So once we start to lift a certain weight, it's next week you've been able to lift more reps or more weight. It's not a byproduct, obviously, of you building more tissue to be able to generate more force. It is just refinement of whenever we're looking at the nervous system becoming better at sort of recruitment of those muscle fibers locked in on those specific vectors. So it just becomes...
That's really nice, James. I wonder if I can just come in here just for a second. So you asked me to pull this up, right? So here you have it. This is a nice graphic for you on this one. And in fact, you know what? I'm gonna get a different one actually on this. Just relating to that point that you made about muscle size and cross-sectional area associated with
Yep.
strength. I'm just going to get up here. So here you go. This is individual muscle size plotted against isometric force, and it does just support that thing that you're just saying on here. So cross-sectional area, that is muscle size. This is fiber type, and then this is isometric force measured by an isokinetic dynamometer, which is a fancy leg extension machine, or you can set it up to do things like bicep curls as well. And this type of machine will also measure things like force development and so on. So these are individual data points from people that are plotting them from different people. And you can see it's a really nice relationship between the two, right? And you get this number here. This is an R squared value, right? And that R squared value is 0.57, which means we can explain the relationship between those two things around about 57% from those two things, which means we can't explain how muscle size or strength is getting bigger to the tune of around about 43%. So there's other things going on in that equation which fits in really nicely with what you're just explaining here as well about efficiencies and recruitment patterns and everything like that as well, which also explain it. So it's not just as you say, bigger muscles means more strength. It fits in beautifully with what you're just explaining there. And I thought that was really important for me to come in on here. And don't worry, I'm going to come in with another graphic in a second after this, which is going to support that next thing that you're saying. Does that all make sense?
We're all on.
Excellent. Sorry, go on, continue. I'll bring up this this next one for us as you go on with this.
Yeah, so for us, we have to look at what happens in the initial phase and whether that's somebody starting training from scratch. So they'll have like a lot of progressions in terms of their ability to move load. And that's just neuromuscular recruitment, as we talk about, sort of that adaptation, where the body, the brain is being able to coordinate those patterns a little bit more effectively, allowing you to generate more force, direction of force. So
it's like skill acquisition, right?
That's all it is, right? So, and it's going to be the same with whenever I take even advanced athletes into, so I'll discuss that in a little bit, take them into new programs. So most of the people that I work with on a training perspective, they kind of understand my methodologies and program design. This is also, even with experienced lifters, the first sort of 1 to 3 weeks, I am going to be that guy that's sort of going, let's keep some RIRs, so keep some reps in reserve. That just allows you to focus on the articulation and the skill, the accuracy of those movement patterns without actually having to go near failure. Failure is a distraction to a skill because your brain is then essentially going to be distracted by the difficulty, metabolite buildup, it's going to become harder to stabilize those movement patterns, in particular free weight movements as well. So that's kind of what we have to look at in terms of the short term. The first week 1 to week 3 in my program design, I would have them lower RPEs. Once they've refined the skill, we've got the patterns locked in, then we can start to be a wee bit more aggressive with adding reps, weight, the other sort of concepts that I would use, which would be like either increasing intensifiers, increasing sets, increasing frequency. And those are other methods that we would use to implement in terms of progressive overload as well.
Excellent stuff, James.
Really anything more with the short-term adaptation that you want to put up?
Yeah, I do. So yeah. I'm gonna bring this up now as well, just to support the points that you were making on here. So for anyone who's listening to this, this is a paper and a graphic that I've just taken out of a paper that sort of explains how muscle hypertrophy works, right? And what we've got here is you've got at the top of this graphic, you've got 3 different sort of factors on here. You've got the resistance training itself, and different sort of rep ranges, so anything between 10 to 30. You've got rest interval manipulation as well. You've got concepts such as muscular failure and continuous muscle tension. We've also got blood flow and blood flow restriction. And then you've got all-out efforts on here as well. All of these things contribute towards metabolic stresses. Yep, which I think is very, very important to sort of appreciate and realize that they all kind of go through the same sort of pathway on this, regardless of what you're doing. You're always causing that metabolic stress. They're also all developing a hormonal release and a hormonal response. They're all developing a degree of hypoxia. And when we talk about hypoxia, we're talking about the restriction of oxygen getting to the muscle. They're all getting a degree of reactive oxygen species generation. So that is oxidative damage being developed by the mitochondria within the muscle cell itself, just by virtue of the respiration that might be going on, but also the damage which occurs from the hypoxia. And then you were referring to the sort of acute adaptation as well. You're getting cellular swelling taking place here as well, which can be both short-term and long-term. And we've all had DOMs, so we experience that long-term edema. Now, you've got all of these things, and the adaptations to that is muscle hypertrophy. You've got angiogenesis, which is the development of more blood cells to transport oxygen to the muscle, but you also get mitochondrial biogenesis as well. And that is the adaptation whereby your cells become more effective at generating energy within them as well, because remember, your body's just trying to adapt so that it can generate energy more effectively, then it can deal and cope with that stress better as well, alongside developing those thicker fibers. And the final thing I'm just going to pull up here to support this sort of stuff is you've got to realize that progressive overload can occur through lots of different pathways and mechanisms. So there's lots of different things available to you, which is one of the reasons why lots of different styles of training can be effective. But when we're talking about your particular styles of training, we're also talking about a great degree of accuracy in what we're doing as well at the same time. So hopefully that supports and backs up what you're saying there. And is that helpful, James?
Yeah, that's bang on. That aligns well.
No problem. No problem. Hopefully I can bring up some other good graphics for you.
Yeah. So if we just sort of simplify, because most people...
Oh yeah, please do.
Whenever we're talking about the methods of progressive overload, I kind of break them down into kind of simple, moderate, and more difficult or advanced. You can sort of categorize those.
Yeah.
And for me, there's two kind of models in each one. So whenever we're thinking about what's the most frequently used, so everybody kind of knows even from beginner level, it's a simple process of one, adding more weight, two, add more reps. So these are the most frequently used, even in less experienced lifters. Experienced lifters, we're still utilizing that as well, but quite often we may put that further back in favor of the things that are more difficult. And that means things like improving the basic techniques. So that's going to be your active range, locking those in, locking down tempos, which is a fan that I'm of as well. Just make sure that I'm assigning those in programming methods too.
Yeah, they're so good. I wonder if I could just come in a wee second here on this one. The tempo stuff's so important, James. When you're working with guys, and when I see guys just training in the gym, and when I work with guys as well, you quite quickly realize that a lot of guys training is dog shit.
Yeah.
Right? There's so little activation, right? They're not getting decent mind-muscle connection. And a lot of the time it's just because they're speeding through reps, going so fast. They've got a rhythm, but the rhythm is poor.
Yeah.
So I always prescribe tempos and some very simple tempos just to come at you as a 2-second eccentric, a 2-second concentric with a 1-second pause at the top or the bottom. Just if guys can do that, then the quality of their training will improve probably by 70-80%, just that one point alone.
Without a doubt. So the two sort of the difficult ranges would be is that one, because most people, whenever you just start training, you're not really particularly thinking about active range. Even though the newly qualified PT, we're talking about full ROM, and range of movement is not really. I'm not an advocate of that terminology. I think it can be almost like counterproductive and dangerous. So like imagine like I see people using, if you use like a cambered bar bench press, thankfully those kind of practices are dead in the water for most part. Maybe powerlifters may still implement those as.
I've done a cambered bar many a time, by the way.
But
I've abused my body.
Yeah, whenever you think about those patterns, that's still considered a full range of movement, like as far as a joint can move. But quite often for us to get into the extremes of the angles of those joints, a lot of that musculature that crosses the joint has to become passive. And whenever a muscle is passive, there's less stability of the joint. So you're exposing it potentially to irreparable damage. And for me, then the phrase that I use with incorrect English is on purpose, by the way, if something is good, more of it is gooder. So we know that the stretch is very good in terms of that stimulatory effect. So most people think, oh, if a stretch is good, then more of a stretch is gooder. So I obviously want to fold my knee in half on a leg press. That's become more and more fashionable. I'm seeing some people move away from that, thankfully. For me, it just creates just too much instability and there's too much potential for damage at the bottom. So I think enough of a stretch in a muscle is probably more optimal for muscle growth while still preventing any sort of downgrading of the joint itself. So focusing on those, the range and tempo is, I think, a more difficult thing. So it's more running in alignment with more experienced lifters becomes more important. The reason being is if somebody's just started lifting, they can do a lot of the wrong things over and over again and still get growth. But
100%. Yeah, just literally putting weights away.
Yeah.
Will make them bigger. But it's once they've been training for a while, they sort of, if you've got anything about you, you should sort of realize, right, okay, I've plateaued. And some people don't. Things have now got to change. If you've got anything about you.
Yeah. So the two sides of the difficult is really understanding your tempo and your range. So we can, with the tempo, it's going to align with better mechanical tension. We're maintaining that tension. Whenever I think about mechanical tension, I'm thinking about the lights on in this room and we're working on a dimmer switch rather than a light switch.
Which I think is a great sort of metaphor.
Yeah. So we're turning it down and up, but we're never turning it off. And whenever we have that, I just consider that sort of electronical conductivity to that light bulb a constant flow of mechanical tension and mechanical energy. So we kind of want to consider the contraction to be like that rather than on-off. So that's where the tempo comes in. The active range, making sure that we are using profiles that allow the muscle to lengthen, but we're still retaining the stability of the joint, I think is imperative for most movements as well. The other part of the difficult one then is improving the advanced techniques. So Andrew, came across and we were running seminars together where I was doing the training methodologies on the gym floor in the practical workshop, where I was talking about the utilization of internal or external cues in order just to get better overall contraction and maintenance of that contraction. So
okay, let's just on that a second for people who are not familiar with these terms. When we're talking about an internal cue, that's quite literally that mind muscle connection. That is your ability to, am I feeling my muscle activating through the range that I'm trying to break it through? Is that a correct or a fair
yeah,
definition?
yeah,
And when we're talking about external cues, that's almost those coaching points that someone might say to you, right? Okay, keep your elbow tucked, follow the pattern of the cables pulling you, or go out of that range. That's those sort of cues. Is that a fair assessment, or have you got a slightly different take on that?
it's almost like an action outside of the body. So we're considering like driving the bar away. So a lot of
Yeah,
a lot of external cues would be very effective for force production, and that's been proven.
yeah, that's that power lifting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has its place even in hypertrophy because we're still, even though
Oh
we're
yeah, yeah.
muscle, we're still trying to move weight. That's key. Because trying to do these moves with accuracy and all those things is irrelevant if the weight doesn't challenge the pattern. So we need to make sure that we're coming at it from, I'm not saying old school, new school, old school, lift heavy and go absolutely nuts, or new school, lift light and be technical and keep the light.
No, I think you need it more. Sorry, you need it both. You need it both for sure.
There is a mix in there, I think, as long as technique is on point. But for me, the difficult ones, particularly the utilization of cues, if you're not really up to scratch on those, then that's where maybe outsourcing the coach can, good coach can take you through those to actually elevate your game. So regardless if you are already a good bodybuilder, if there's still potential for you to be better, then don't keep doing the same things over and over again. If you do feel that you've actually plateaued in your physique development, start to outsource and outreach and see if there's other people that can actually take you to that next level. So sometimes it's not a genetic ceiling that's holding you back. It's your awareness and your toolkit that doesn't allow you to break through that plateau.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a good example. I mean, I think you're great at this stuff. Genuinely, James. When it made. I mean, I train myself a lot of the time for sure. And when you train yourself, you can get complacent and you miss things and so on from here. So yeah, certainly when I came across one area for me, which I've really been trying to work on for years, is back development for sure. And just working with a few more of these little cues, I think has really helped me develop even better internal cueing
Yeah.
as well. And you know what? I think that having worked with you, I can train longer and healthier probably in terms of my bodybuilding career compared to what I've done in the past, because I, coming from a power building background where you do points one which is more weight and point two more reps for such a long time, and here it was very successful, very successful. This is adding more quality and certainly more longevity to my career for sure. So we've got more weight, we've got more reps, we've got active range, we've got tempo, we've got improved internal cueing, external cueing, and we've got improved advanced techniques. So sorry, I've jumped in here
Yeah.
and we'll go with this. So where we go next on this one, James?
Yeah. So those, like for me, those are the six models. We're just looking
Okay.
at. I kind of look at those all kind of like separate. They all interconnect, particularly the difficult,
Yeah.
moderate, and stuff. But there's two for me in each category: reps and weight, which is the basic or the sort of simplistic approach. The moderate then is to do with frequency and using intensifiers, intensity techniques. So we're just accumulating more total time under tension throughout the course of a week or any time period. And then we have, as we just discussed there now, about the sort of technical elements, talking about range, tempos, and then the ability to utilize cues so we can actually bias specific muscles. And this becomes really important whenever somebody's already developed a pretty good physique,
Yeah.
but they are missing, or they've got areas that are just slightly under development, and there's generally reasons for that. And quite often with great athletes like yourself, Andrew, it's not for a lack of effort, it's not for a lack of consistency, because you don't get your kind of physique without all those in place.
Sure.
for you to kind of raise your limit even by another 1% or 2%,
Yeah.
we got to sometimes just go, right, I need to implement the difficult strategies more. So learning how to cue every single action that we do within the time frame of the gym environment will lead to more overall stimulus. And then with your nutritional capacity and knowledge, you're able to incite that growth that we need.
No, for sure. I mean, and this is why I was calling you the British Charles Glass, which I think is a great compliment. Anyone who doesn't know Charles Glass, certainly go and look him up and check out his physique. What a great bodybuilder in the 80s. But he's a master trainer, and I think he's very, very big on these internal, external sort of cues as well, in terms of getting the absolute most out of an exercise. And it's, as you say, if you're a bodybuilder and you've got lagging body parts in there, it's very often because there's something not quite right with the training. You're maybe just not able to activate quite as effectively as you should be. And then sort of classic examples are guys that have maybe got great arms but poor chests, or
Yeah.
great arms but poor backs. And it's because they're using all the activation that's coming from the arms rather than being able to effectively bring the chest in and train that effectively, or the back in here, yeah.
Yeah.
To further that point, when I often sort of see guys on stage, and I do see weak development in them and stuff like that, very often people talk about genetics, and genetics is a word that's thrown around a lot in the world of bodybuilding. Now, I've obviously got good genetics. I've got an aptitude for this. There's no doubt. But when I think about the guys that I've came up against, I'm not a Nathan Williams. I certainly never had what Satonya Dukubu had, who beat me. I never had what a Shane Raymond has had as well from here. But I certainly know I'm a very hard worker, very much a lot of attention to detail on this. But have you been training for 20 plus years as a competitive bodybuilder, you're just going to build a great physique. And I think people obfuscate responsibility to bad genetics, like, oh, well, just genetically. And I sort of look at it and I think, well, maybe your programming's not that great, or it's as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
Maybe your diet is not as good as you think it is as well. And maybe your training's not as good as you think it is as well. Because I train with so many guys all the time. And I come back to that point I made earlier on. Technique is poor. Technique is poor. Like, just not getting full range of motion. And I know we talked about active range, but there should be a decent range of motion. Tempo is poor. Again, not hitting that point that you've said on there. So the mind muscle connection is poor as well. And then the other thing that you never even brought up on this, and I'm a bit advocate as well, is people cruise through workouts. I'm a big fan of rest periods and rest period manipulation. Just if it takes you an hour and a half to go through probably 18 sets or something like that, you're probably taking far too long. And there's probably very little in the way of intensity in those workouts. And I know that when we talk about intensity, we often use it in terms of total load lifted or advanced training techniques rather than the pace at which you go through your workout. But if you just cruise all the way through, and that could be because you're putting tripods up and everything like that, then that is detracting from your ability to have a good workout and to stimulate at the end of the day, based on the graphics I've just put up, which encourage hypoxia, metabolic stress, all those sort of things at the same time. And I don't know what you think about that, James.
That's actually so valid. I've been policing my gym, the compound room, a lot, even over the last week, where people on their phones, particularly a lot of the younger guys, and I've went across and I've like appear over their shoulder and to see them scrolling through TikTok and whatever else, and I'm trying to influence them to put their phones away. And I said there was a statistic at one point where the average gym goer, weightlifter in the gym, averages around 18 sets per hour. Now, I can see that average is massively declined because people are, death scrolling in between sets.
Yeah.
Taking way, way too long. Now, I am an advocate if you're doing, so again, we'll not segue too much on this, but a common question is, how long should I recover between sets? And
Yeah.
again, if we're implementing, you're talking about trying to create cell volume, cell swelling, using volume GVT or whatever it is, then you have like set parameters of recoveries.
Yeah, usually 1 minute between sets,
That's
working
right.
at 80% 1 minute max for 10 sets. That's GVT, German volume training.
So it always has to, for me, it also, the other factor is that would be how difficult was the last set? What's the intention with the next set? What exercise were you doing? Because you're going to need longer recovery after doing an RP 10 on a set of back squats than you would
100%.
a set of cable curls. So it's exercise dependent as well. So I think whenever you factor all those things in, it has to be instinctive. And the more experience that you have, if you want to optimally perform, this is the thing that I say, whenever you feel ready to train, whenever you feel ready to do your next set, take another 20 to 30 seconds, and that's probably the sweet spot. And I kind of look at the central nervous system being like cinders on the fire, and whenever what we're trying to do is getting that central nervous system fired up to lift weights. So we use primers for that, that method to get us prepared. So you're stoking the fire and you do the set. Well, how long do we want those coals to start to disengage and they're just blowing out? For me, if you're waiting too long, you're literally allowing your central nervous system just to really down-regulate.
And we call that post-neural facilitation. I mean, it's quite literally the excitability of those neural fibers. And that's why you do primers and warm up. A nice little anecdote, for example, was when I was doing at Sheffield, we had the English Institute of Sport, which is now the British Institute of Sport, working with Anthony and Joshua. Those guys, what they were trying to get him to do was to do clapping push-ups before he would go and spar and stuff like that, to activate the fibers and not to take too much rest, because he cools down. But it's not just the muscle cooling down effectively, it's also the nervous system cooling down, and that ability to activate the fibers efficiently and generate as much force production as possible.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about on there. And the other thing is as well, right? If we're talking about just rest to round this section out, you have to realize, right, if you want to get fitter, and fitness is just an adaptation of an organism to an environment, right? If you want to get fitter, you've got to overreach.
Yes.
Have to overreach, right? So if you're doing your set of back squat and it's hard, right, you'll never be able to bring that rest period down from 4 minutes to 3 minutes or 3 minutes to 2 minutes unless you try to bring it down from 4 minutes to 3 minutes to 2 minutes, right? You'll never get fitter unless you try to actually do it. So it's the same concept of, if I try and lift more weight to make the muscle bigger, if I want to recover better, then I obviously at the same time have to work on reducing those recovery times as well. And I've always been strict when I'm doing sets of back squats or whatever it is I'm doing, that it's 3 minutes max, or it's 2 minutes, or it's 90 seconds. And I've put my stopwatch on the wrist, I press my button, I get off, and I take a slug of water, I think about what needs to happen next in the set, and then I go from there. So you've got to overreach.
Yeah,
it just has to happen sometimes. It just has to, or you stay the same.
I think with the recovery profile, a phrase that I use with a lot of my clients when they're in their voice notes and stuff as well is own your 30. So whenever you feel physiologically ready, so whether that's allowing your heart rate to fall back into a good sort of preset condition, that's absolutely key. Allowing metabolite build up or that discomfort associated with that to at least decline, so you feel physically ready. Then I say to people, whenever you feel physically ready, own your 30. So that means the 30 seconds before the next hard working set, you just got to make sure that your brain is really focused, that you're really trying to establish in your mind what is the parameters of that set. What is the intensity I'm trying to achieve? If it's like an RP 7, 8, 9, or if it's a 10, get yourself heightened, visualize the active range you're going to utilize, tempos, and the effort that you want to be able to implement during that set. Own your 30 and use that time psychologically, prepare yourself. We call it mental readiness for a reason, so you can end up elevating the level of performance within that next working set.
Yeah, and that is gold. And again, that's what you need to be doing. I had a guy came up and trained me recently, one of my clients, Kev, and I just said to him, like, look, between your sets, as soon as you finish that set, you need to be thinking about what happens with that next set. What do I need to change? What do I need to do? What went well? Get that slug of water and do all those things about, like you just said. And if you're spending time on your phone and stuff like that, that's taking you out of that zone, and it's taking you out of that place and that ability to be able to do that. And incidentally, this has been studied, right? We know about this from research, right? Guys that time their stopwatch time, right, for 2 minutes between sets versus people who take the approach that you're talking about, which is on the 30 seconds, the actual difference between the recovery times when you actually, again, you've got someone in the background timing it versus that person on that 30 seconds is not that much different, right? The guy ends up taking around about 119 seconds or 118 seconds versus timing it. So if you're on it, then you end up taking around about the same recovery time as well, interestingly. So I thought that little anecdote would be nice. James,
I think.
Oh, go on.
I think if we finish, like if we, I think.
Yeah, I want a nice summary from you, but go on.
So progressive overload, people kind of know what this is, but if you remember the old story of Milo of Croton, I think it was ancient Greece, 6th century.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a lot of us guys that pursue muscle development kind of are aware of this story where he lifted a calf over his shoulder and would walk down the street, and he did this every day. And as the calf grew, he kept doing it. To eventually, he was within 4 years, he was able to walk this fully grown bull up over his shoulder.
Yeah,
his physique, he improved his strength and improved his physique as a byproduct of just doing this daily habit over and over again.
Yeah,
I think if we look at this adage as all those components are only important if they are done over time. So if you're only early into this sort of pursuit of a better physique, you got to be thinking about doing loads of the right stuff over that period of time. So really visualize forward, goal set with that goal in mind. So make sure that it's like going, right, I want to develop my physique. Be realistic. If you're not ready to compete, it's okay. Not everybody that lifts weights needs to walk on stage.
Yeah, definitely not.
Just improve your knowledge, and turn up every day and implement some of the strategies that we've discussed today. If you're already at a really good level, there is always another level. I'm in pursuit of it every single day myself. And Andrew, as he's discussed there, has definitely been doing that this off-season, seeing the physique improve in a short window. Doing things the right way over time will result in very, very great things.
Develop. Yeah, 100%. I was going to talk about protein, but I think we're going to wrap this up here. We can do that on another episode and go from here. Guys, this is our first episode of Two Bro Natty Pro podcast. We'd love to get your feedback. Tell us topics. Tell us what you enjoyed. Tell us what you didn't enjoy. Tell us you're going to buy my trunks. I'll send you them. £500 on PayPal. I'm still waiting on it on here. James, anything we want to close this out with?
No, I think we discussed everything more or less than we wanted to. And as I said, having that next topic where you're going to really take the reins on the sort of nutritional elements, I think it'll really coincide. That'll be a nice part 1 and part 2 of that first couple of episodes.
I think so. James, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, James_W_Melville. I'm also on YouTube. I have a wee YouTube channel, James W. Melville. I don't have a lot of followers because I only really launched it at my last competitive season. And it was more to document like show day vlogs, build up the shows. I am going to be doing that this year. So if anybody's interested in seeing what I'm up to, I am going to be starting to shoot some content, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Andrew, we are hoping there is going to come over. We've got another seminar coming up.
Right.
So we'll plug those. We're going to set the dates for part 3 of the seminar in hopefully June time. We just need to make sure that Dr. Andrew Chappell can align with my time frame. We've got a couple of really great topics on those. The last 2 sold out. So part 1, part 2 sold out. So part 3, we've already got a big interest. So once we get that date set, keep an eye on my page or Andrew's page for updates on those. If you're interested, get in touch and we can book you in for those.
100%. And then, of course, you've mentioned your coaching business. That's Team Compound Prep Coaching. It's there in the background. Definitely check that out from James. James is a great coach, and he's got a very busy season. Testament to the fact that he's got such great skills and knowledge on there. So certainly be sure to check that out as well. And the Natty coach, you can see that there in the background. You can find me on Instagram at the Natty Bodybuilding Coach. You can also find me on my own personal Instagram page, Dr Andrew Chappell. And I'll put all the links and things in the bio. And if there's anything we missed, we'll put it on there as well. I've been Andy. This has been James. Thanks for your attention, everyone, for staying all the way to the end. And we look forward to your feedback and hearing from you for our next episode as well. Signing out. Peace out.